right, welcome everyone. It's now 6:31. I'd like to call to order the Fenton Township Board on this 23rd day of August, 2022. Would everyone please stand for the opening prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance? Trustee Gopal, will you lead us?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Lord, we meet here tonight to conduct matters of business. We ask that you guide our hearts and our minds in the spirit of fairness, right thought, and speech. Impart your supreme wisdom upon these activities so that our affairs may reach a successful conclusion. And as always, we thank you for being the source of our guidance tonight. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As always, Mark, thanks. Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Lorraine,
Present.
Reed,
Here.
Kotrick,
Present.
Krug is present, Kessler,
Here.
Gopal,
Here.
Tucker.
Present.
You have a full board.
Thanks, Bob. I would like to note for the record that the Township Attorney, Jack Belser, Operations Manager Tom Broker, Zoning Administrator Mike Deem, and our Fire Chief Ryan Volz are also present. Additionally,
Melissa in the shadow.
yeah, I was gonna say.
Turn on the lights, Melissa.
Our Township Engineers, Ellen and Melissa Lawrence, are also present via Zoom. In the house at the bottom, that is,
That's a call-in, that's,
okay,
Don McKeon.
that's not Julia, right?
No,
No.
Don
All right, I didn't know.
McKeon, Centennial Farms.
All right. All right, Tom, will you detail the procedures for those attending this meeting via Zoom?
Yes, to the members of the public attending tonight's meeting in person or via Zoom, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded to be shown on public access television, Spectrum Channel 191. Recorded meetings are also posted on the Fenton Area Community Television YouTube channel. For those attending via Zoom, we ask that you keep your microphone muted until we reach the portions of the meeting where public comment is allowed. For tonight's meeting, there are no public hearings, therefore all public comment will be taken near the end of the meeting. Meeting materials are available for download on the Township's website at www.fentontownship.org.
Thanks, Tom. All right, moving on to the first business order is the approval of the agenda. Are there any requests to amend tonight's agenda? Hearing none, a motion is in order to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Support.
All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Yes, I vote yes, Kotrick,
Yes.
Kessler,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Gopal,
Yes.
Tucker,
Yes.
Lorraine,
Yes.
motion passes.
All right, agenda stands approved as presented. Moving on to the next business order is meeting minutes. Included in the packet are the meeting minutes from the August 9th regular meeting. Are there any corrections or requested revisions to those meeting minutes? Hearing none, the meeting minutes stand approved as presented. Next business order is expenditures. Are there any questions from the board regarding any of the invoices? Any questions? Hearing none, a motion is in order to approve the expenditures totaling $98,487.78 for payment.
So moved.
Support.
All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Reed,
Yes.
Gopal,
Yes.
Tucker,
Yes.
Kessler,
Yes.
Lorraine,
Yes.
I vote yes, Kotrick,
Yes.
motion passes.
All right, expenditures stand approved as presented. Moving on to public hearings, tonight we have none. All right, moving on to reports. Tonight we have our first MedStar ambulance update. We have Colby Miller with us tonight that will present the update. Good evening, Colby.
Good evening. Thank you for having us. I think just to make sure you've got the report in your packet too, so I'm leading you through what you already have. Very good. So you have your first quarterly report. We started at the 1st of May, and this report takes you through the end of July. This is a pretty standard format for us, so if there's anything that you'd like to see added on for the township, we're certainly happy to do it, but this is how it comes out generally. The first slide in your report is the emergency versus non-emergency. 141 emergency responses in the township in the quarter, 122 non-emergency. That's a little heavier on the emergency side than we're usually used to seeing. We actually do try to have as few emergency responses as we can, just for the risk and safety component of the emergency response. But the other thing that we see in the township is that the vast majority of the 911 calls that originate from Fenton Township are emergency requests. So there's not a lot of some of the lower priority calls that we see in other communities. So that's what makes up the heavy emergency response. But anyway, 263 emergency responses in the quarter. The response volume is largely ALS, 122 ALS versus 19 BLS on the emergency side, 97 ALS versus 25 BLS on the non-emergency side. I gave you the top 10 reasons for the 911 calls. You do see the sick person call is obviously the number one request. That is coded as a non-emergency call through the emergency dispatch system that Genesee County 911 uses, and generally appropriate. We'll look at some slides in a minute about that, but the calls break down from there. There are, of course, several other nature complaints, but they add up to 2 or 3 calls in the quarter, so they don't make it onto this report. The response outcome, 135 of the patients are transported non-emergency to the hospital. 41 are transported emergency, so lights and siren from the scene to the hospital. And 24 are either canceled en route or canceled on scene. Some of those cancellations are patient refusal, or PD gets on scene and says it's not an injury accident. The emergency response time performance, we give you the minute by minute breakdown, and the way to read this graph is the minutes that run along the lower axis. That's a 0-minute response, 2-minute response, 3-minute response, and then the count that runs the left axis is the number of each of those responses. In the township in the quarter, generating an average 6.45 minute emergency response average. We, I think it's a lot. The one graph that we didn't include, only because my graphing skills aren't up to speed, is the scatter plot graph for the consistency of response times. One of the things that we've noticed in all the communities that we serve, we've improved a lot of emergency response times, some as much as 50% in the communities that we serve under the service agreements. But one of the things that we've noticed is there's no more outliers. There's no more of this 25, 30-minute response that came up every now and then that we'd hear about in the media. Those have just gone away. The other thing, as it relates to emergency and non-emergency response, that I think is important to mention, and I think this was part of the preface of our discussions with Fenton Township and the other communities, since we've started the service agreements in all of the communities, there have been no reports of no ambulance that's available for the communities. So that was one of the things that we struggled with in Genesee County early on, was these no ambulance available reports, and there have not been any yet in the communities that we serve. For emergency responses, and I want to make it real clear as we talk about responses, and we're very transparent in this, that we will delay a non-emergency response for an emergency response. We will reroute an ambulance. If we're on the way to an upset stomach and a chest pain comes in, we will reroute that upset stomach call. So when you look at the non-emergency response times, you'll see a couple of things. You'll see diverted calls. And in Genesee County, we have an anomaly that we don't have in other service areas, and we're trying to work our way through it here. But Genesee County sends ambulances on something called welfare checks. And it's an unfamiliar thing for us. We don't know it in any other part of the state. But if somebody calls 911 and says, I need you to come check on my neighbor, I haven't seen her in a couple days and I don't know if she's okay, they'll send an ambulance. So those calls are diverted. So when you look at the non-emergency time performance, some of these minutes, and I'm perfectly happy with the time that's in the non-emergency response, but understand that some of those aren't actual ambulance requests. We're just being sent to check on people. So that is something that's a little bit different here. We're working with the 911 system to get a better understanding of how that comes about, and maybe there's a way that we can address some of those things without tying up an ambulance. So we're going to put some effort into that, but that is something that generates the non-emergency response time, as you see. Even then, the longest non-emergency response is 17 minutes in the township in the quarter. So those are acceptable times. Moving on, the other thing that I think is important as we talk about the 911 call categorization, one of the things we always hear is, I called 911 and somebody asked me a bunch of questions, and why are they asking me all these questions? Those questions generate how we respond, whether it's a lights and siren response, whether it's not, whether the fire department goes or whether they don't. Something that's very important to see in your data here is that there are no non-emergency dispatches that resulted in an emergency transport. So what that means is that system of call categorization is working. It's concerning when you have non-emergency responses and an emergency transport. That means that the system got it wrong, and this is great data. There's no exceptions to the non-emergency dispatch criteria, so that works well. From a patient satisfaction survey, because we are a quarter behind in reporting, we don't have the full survey for you, but we received no negative patient feedback or complaints in the quarter. And when we did a one-year look back at all of our service in the Fenton Township, even though some of that period was outside of the contracted time, the top box patient satisfaction for Fenton Township is 97.1%. That's 97.1% of the surveys have been received with an overall satisfaction of fair, good, or very good. So 97% positive response from all the patient feedback. And then we lifted a couple of the comments out of those patient surveys that are at the end of your presentation. I will credit the chief for being very responsive as we've implemented the service. We talked for the first couple of weeks just about every day to make sure that everything went right the day before, that everybody knew how we did things and how we interacted, and much like the other communities in Genesee County, having that close contact with the fire department has made this a really seamless transition. I think there may have been some people in the bleachers that were waiting for trouble, and working with the fire chiefs the way that we did, it went off silently, and we're pretty happy with that. We continue to push our AED and CPR awareness program. I talked to the chief this evening. We're going to work with one of the high schools about getting an AED into the schools, and we continue to work with any church, civic, education, not-for-profit, or unit of government to make sure that AEDs are in all public buildings in our service area. We'll either match fundraising efforts, or in areas where the fundraising can't be done, we'll just buy it and place it in the facility so that it's there. I won't read the patient satisfaction comments for you, but directly from the patient satisfaction surveys, we lift some of the handwritten comments that come in, and we continue to receive good feedback in the town. Well, they're there. We receive great feedback in the township, and anytime these survey comments are questioned, or anytime somebody wants to see the individual surveys, we can match the survey with the response report, so that if somebody says, you know, who's saying all these nice things about you, we can actually look back to who the person is. Of course, we're limited on sharing some of that information because of HIPAA, but the information that we see is exactly what you're seeing here. We're also spending a lot of time in our study of the non-emergency response discussion to analyze patient satisfaction survey data on the question of, was the response time of the ambulance appropriate to the actual response time of the ambulance, stratified against the clock. And what we're seeing is that the general public understands that the reason that they called for an ambulance, emergency or non, their satisfaction with the response time is consistent all the way across the time spectrum. So the feedback that we see as we look at whether we should be running lights and sirens and everything or not is that the general public understands. If you call for an ambulance with an upset stomach, you shouldn't expect it to be there in 3 minutes. And that survey data really supports what we're doing in trying to reduce these emergency responses. So that is the first quarterly report. I hope it's not too brief. I tried not to spend too much time on the individual slide sets, but happy to take questions.
I have a couple. Excuse the ignorance. ALS and BLS.
Advanced life support or basic life support, and on the advanced life support ambulances, that's where the paramedics are.
Okay. The average response times for non-emergency, got a nice little box on the emergency ones, but I think it was just omitted by accident from the non-emergency. Do you know the number?
I do not know it off the top of my head, but the moment I arrive at my house, I will yell at the guy who made these slides,
Well,
and I will get you the information.
don't hurt them. We don't want another ALS added to the spectrum.
By looking at the slide data, by looking at the response data that's here, I would tell you that the average response to a non-emergency is somewhere between 9 and 10 minutes.
That's what I guesstimated. Are we looking at mean or median when we talk about average?
We're talking about mean.
Okay.
It's an Excel mean that we calculate from the response times.
I think that's everything I have.
And also remember on response times that we only calculate response time on scene arrivals. So any canceled trip that's canceled en route generates a null value in the actual scene arrival, so it's not even counting response times.
That's gonna raise your number. You maybe want to throw those in.
We don't know what to count the time as. I mean, we can use the cancel time, but if we're canceled 20 seconds after we're started, it makes it look a little,
I know math.
a little better than.
Lower your average.
Right. Any other questions?
One comment. As clerk, I always try to get everybody to vote that wants to vote. And you stepped up and helped me get a lady to the polls, and I really appreciate that.
We're happy to help. I hope you'll see over the span of our relationship that we very much want a partnership with the communities that we serve. We don't see ourselves as a vendor. We see ourselves as a community partner. Some of the things that we involve ourselves with the various communities have nothing to do with ambulance work. Sometimes we're just helping because it's the right thing to do. Sometimes it's an ambulance patient who needs help after a call that still has nothing to do with ambulance work, and we do it because we're a part of the communities that we serve, and we're happy to do it.
But thank you.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions?
I have one more. I see you're moving into the city now. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Do you anticipate any effect on our response time as a result of that?
I think it will bring more unit hours into the southern part of our deployment system, so I think that ultimately it will improve response times throughout the southern communities. I was in front of the Linden City Council last night for their approval of a contract. The Fenton City Council has approved the concept. They've got a couple things they want to tweak in the contract. I don't suspect it will be too long before Argentine moves in the same direction. But those other communities joining will increase our resource deployment into the southern part, and I think it will benefit the township.
Good. You might need an antitrust lawyer soon, but I don't know a good one, so.
Thanks, Colby. I'm sure the board's aware that Fenton Township was one of the first municipalities to sign an exclusive agreement with MedStar, and that all really is because of our chief. I wanted to thank you, Chief Oltz, for starting this process. You don't have to walk up to the microphone, but I think our response times, can you let me know before MedStar?
We've lowered our response times by 2 minutes.
All right.
We knew it was gonna work, just didn't know it was gonna work this well, so.
Mr.
Hats off
Supervisor.
to MedStar for providing that excellent service and excellent staff. It's working out great.
And 2 minutes is the difference, especially in the emergency response or
Golden
Yeah.
hour.
one of those. Could be the difference between life and death.
Could be.
So Colby, I know, I can't speak for the board, but I get a report almost twice a week from my chief regarding what you're doing for this township and its residents. And I'm very happy that this board supported our chief in making the recommendation to have you as our provider. So as one of our first, how many municipalities are you up to now? Because I know we had a little issue at 911, but where are you at now?
Yeah, I can rattle them off by name faster than I can count them, but it's Otisville, Forest, Richfield, Davison, the city of Davison, Atlas Township, Fenton Township, Fenton City, now Linden, the city of Swartz Creek, Mundy Township, Gaines Township, and the village of Gaines, all with signed agreements.
It would be 14.
14, there you go.
And that would also mean that the resources that you are deploying here is a benefit for everyone. So somebody that was sitting on the outskirts of Argentine now is benefiting from these municipalities making the decision to join.
That is correct.
So,
And if I may, I know it's not part of our report, but I will tell you that when this discussion started, your fire chief and the Davison area fire chief both separately approached MedStar and said, please help us solve a community problem that has gone on forever and ever. And when we interacted with Ryan and when we interacted with the chief in Davison, we said, here's our proposal, here's how we think it can work in this community because it works everywhere else. And both of the chiefs were very firm in their communication with us that whether it works for the ambulance company or works for the fire department is insignificant. It has to work for the residents, it has to be reliable, and we have to move away from this happenstance system of ambulance response. And from Ryan to me, if you tell me this is gonna work, and you prove it, and you show it, and you demonstrate it in your other communities, then I'll move it forward. But if you can't commit to us that this is gonna work, I'm not gonna talk to you guys from MedStar or anybody else until we've got a solution that works. And I think that level of engagement with us helped us carry the message against, and you saw it and you saw it, there's communities in this county who think this kind of reliability is somehow wrong. It's the strength of those voices at the 911 consortium that have moved this along. It's not MedStar. So we're happy to be a partner.
Thank you, Colby.
Thank you.
Is there any other comments or questions from the board for Colby? Thank you, Colby. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Are there any other committee reports to be made to the board this evening? Hearing none, we'll move on to communications. None. Adoption of ordinances. None. Unfinished business. None. All right. Next business order is new business. We have a letter of resignation for firefighter Tate Hall. I'm sure we've reviewed the resignation email from Tate, but Chief Foltz, do you have additional comments?
Just down to the point of he lost his residency and had to move away. So his goal is to come back and find a place in the township. So he figured it'd be best to terminate his employment until he has a place close enough to the fire station to help with the township and respond as a firefighter. So I just move that we accept his resignation, and that we look for the future for him to come back and hopefully rehire him again.
Sounds good. All right, I need a motion to accept the resignation of Tate Hall from the Fenton Township Fire Department.
I'll move.
Support.
All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Clerk Crowe, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Patrick?
Yes.
Kessler?
Yes.
Krug votes yes. Gopel?
Yes.
Tucker?
Yes.
Lorraine?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, next under new business is a proposed hiring. Fenton Township Fire Department. We've all reviewed the memo from Chief Foltz. We have a new hire coming in. I don't want to barbecue the name, but I think it's Ruben Salgado.
That's correct.
All right. Chief Foltz, do you want to?
I actually ran into Ruben at the party store across the street. He was working there, and I asked him if he lived in the area, and he said yes. And I said, "Has ever thought about being on the fire department?" He says, "Absolutely." So he came that Monday and grabbed a application. We got his process all taken care of, as I think the drug test has been taken today as well.
Yes.
And we're ready to put him to work. So he has no training. We'll have to fully train him. He'll be a Station 1 firefighter, and we'd be happy to have him.
Thanks, Chief. All right, any comments, questions from the board? All right, I need a motion to approve the hiring of Ruben Salgado as a member of the Fenton Township Fire Department.
I'll move the motion.
Support.
All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Gopel?
Yes.
Tucker?
Yes.
Lorraine?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
I vote yes. Reed?
Yes.
Kessler?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, Chief, are we gonna move on to the swearing in? Or?
Yes, we have firefighter Andrew Cox. We have our other new hire, Jeremy Driggett, and we will also have Ruben come up, and I'd like to swear all three of them in. So if you gentlemen would like to proceed to the front, in front of Mr. Broker.
Young lady isn't part of the team.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
So if each of you could raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Jennings Road,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
faithfully execute the duties
faithfully execute the duties
of firefighter for the Charter Township of Fenton,
of firefighter for the Charter Township of Fenton,
to selflessly serve the citizens of Fenton Township
to selflessly serve the citizens of Fenton Township
with respect, integrity, and excellence,
with respect, integrity, and excellence,
and to uphold the mission of the Fenton Township Fire Department,
and to uphold the mission of the Fenton Township Fire Department,
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Michigan,
the Constitution of the State of Michigan,
and the laws and ordinances of Fenton Township.
and the laws and ordinances of Fenton Township.
So help me God.
So help me God. Thank you.
Welcome aboard.
Just in passing, even though I'm not a board member here, but Mr. Driggett and his family have a long history of service to the community and great family.
Great.
Even though he didn't hear me, but that's
It's on the tape.
We'll send you a copy.
Thanks, Chief. All right, moving on to the next.
Board meeting and another hire.
All right. Next under new business is resolution number 2022-28, adoption of the Thompson Road corridor. We have our zoning administrator, Mike Deem, that will review. I think we have a slide presentation also.
Yep, so this has been 8 months in the making. So the first question is, why now, right? Thompson Road corridor has been in discussions for 20 years. So what happened now? And as you can tell, water is coming to the township for the first time. This is a dramatic change. When you look at the previous master plan, the future land use plan, right, really only has 3 categories. It has your low density residential, medium density residential, and mixed use. Now that we're going to be seeing water, it's important that we have a more detailed future land use plan, specifically for this Thompson Road corridor area, but we'll talk about the rest of the township in a minute. Because there's going to be new outside factors putting pressure for development on the township. And we need to make sure that the development that we have coming in, that's the existing future land use map, that the development that we coming in is planned and consistent with the vision of the township. So we went through this process. If you look at the next slide, the other reason why this is also important, if you look at this map, all the yellow property is vacant property. All right, so the water line is going to be coming down Fenton Road and across Thompson, and it is going to be hitting a lot of vacant property. Vacant property along water presents opportunities for change, and we need to be prepared for those opportunities when they come in. So when we look at a land use plan, right, the most important part is future land use plan, right? And so if we look at the next slide, or we take a step back, how is this prepared? As I said, this is not, we're not creating something out of thin air here. This has been a process that's been ongoing for 20 years. We started looking at the 2002 Thompson Road corridor plan, the 2009 Thompson Road corridor pattern book, even the 2018 master plan, right? They all specifically talk about what the vision, what the public wants to see on Thompson Road. We also looked at the county plans. What do they have? You know, the Genesee County Long Range Transportation Plan looks at the Thompson Road bridge over US 23. This was not just looking at old plans. We tried to involve the public as much as possible. We held 3 open houses in the township. We had a public hearing with the Planning Commission separate from those 3 open houses. We had information available for people as they walked in, coming to pay taxes. We had the big idea board. That was sort of the kickoff to this whole thing. You know, what do you view is needed, or what do you want to see in the Thompson Road corridor? We had online participation, and we met with property owners, business owners, the county agencies, our engineers. We met with as many people to try and get as much public input as possible. So, what was the outcome of all that? We have our new future land use plan for the Thompson Road corridor area. It's a lot more colors than what the 2018 master plan had. And the reason for that is we got more specific about the types of uses we wanted to see in the corridor. So when we look at what's changed between this plan and the 2018 plan, if we go to the next slide, starting with Ray Road west of the US 23, right? It was originally shown as low density residential. Well, now in the 2022 plan, we still have that shown as low density residential. And as we go through these slides, we're going to see that there's only slight changes to what the previous master plan is compared to what is being talked about tonight. So if we look at the next slide, we're looking at Thompson Road and then Ray Road east of the interchange. All right, so again, low density residential. And in the next map, we show remains low density residential. The character of Ray Road is not going to change, right? We understand it's a dirt road, right? Water is not going to be directly accessible to it, so there's no need to make changes to that classification. When we go to the next section, we start looking at our commercial areas, right? So this would be Thompson Road west of US 23. This category in the 2018 master plan was mixed use. And, you know, it was sort of developed as a catch-all. You know, with the thought that water's not coming to the township, what is a sort of a flexible land use category that would allow a developer to present their best plan and make a case in front of the township? Well, like we said, water's coming now. So we need to help push the developers in the right direction by providing that more detail. And so on the next slide, we have this new blue category, right? This is the town center district. And what this is really intended to be, it is a planned development in such that it would incorporate commercial, it could incorporate residential, civic uses, public spaces, high density residential. But the key to this is that it is a planned project, right? So the intent is not just to allow a strip mall here, a strip mall there. It is more along the lines of seeing developments like you would see Hill Road and US 23, right? Where you have commercial up at Hill Road and 23. As you move back, there's hotels, and then there is the surgery centers in the back, right? So it's a mixed use planned development that has a thought in mind behind it. We look at the brown, that's the highway service district. And what that is taking an understanding of what the existing conditions are on Thompson Road and realizing that you're just not going to be able, no one's going to come in and bulldoze the whole thing and start over. So you look at what's there, right? It's auto related, it's industrial, it's commercial. All right, so let's continue with that, but we'll put some buffer requirements, appearance, design requirements onto those uses that you see in there. But that's still focused more on your uses that would be appropriate off the highway. So our next area would be, so now we're at Laring Road, Laring and Jennings, right? Again, this was that mixed use category. It kind of left things open for discussion. Now we have it narrowed down to, next slide, to the high density residential, right? And that matches up with the Brookwood age restricted community that's going through the planning process right now, which was consistent with the mixed use classification, but now we're focusing more on what actually is being planned there, and identifying the medium density residential, to the west. It serves as that buffer so the high density serves as the buffer between the medium density and the highway. And so as you head west, you start to see the reduction in density of residential. Now, when you're looking at Thompson Road, east of the interchange, again, right, that was all under that mixed use category. And now it's going to be more of that highway service district. And then as I think the next slide probably talks about Torrey Road, but when you look at the Torrey Road area, so Torrey Road, right? Originally, it was a mixture of medium density residential and that mixed use. And now that we're looking at it, it takes on that town center district, right? So next slide. Takes on that town center district. And again, right, that doesn't mean residential is not allowed. It does. We would like to see it incorporate some additional uses, but a residential use would be appropriate in there. But it also, again, we know we're going to see some development, and I think it's important that the development we have has a plan to it. And again, that's why this classification is really the majority of where we see commercial development happening in the township. Next slide. So now we're looking at Thompson Road, sort of between Fenton and Torrey. Again, right, mixed use. And now, to trick you, we're keeping part of it mixed use. We've recognized, right, that medium density is already existing around there. And for that stretch, that makes sense. But what we're looking at for mixed use is actually true mixed use, right? Thinking more along the lines of a live-work situation where you would have some sort of office or research and development type where you would have residential uses incorporated in it. Or you could also potentially have some neighborhood commercial. So you're not looking at So when we talk about neighborhood commercial, we're looking at the service area is more of this general area. We're not looking to bring people off of Fenton Road and Leroy. We're not looking to bring people off the highways to serve the residents of the township in this area. So now you're looking at, what is that? Is that North Long? That's Wiggins Road, right? And part of North Long Lake Road. Again, right, we have a lot of that mixed use and medium density residential. And now, medium density residential, because that's what's there. You know, we have, it's all residential developments. There's no point in changing what's there, because what's there is appropriate for the existing land uses. Next slide. So now we're looking at Fenton and North Long Lake Road, right? So we're looking at where the Fenton Wine and Brewery is. There's a couple shops right there on the corner of Fenton and North Long Lake Road. That section was identified as mixed use, and then the majority of it was medium density residential. But now, under the 2022, kind of providing an opportunity for the expansion of that commercial use down there and creating sort of a commercial node. Now, will those vacant properties go commercial? Probably not. But if the right plan comes in, right, they would have the ability to apply for a rezoning and make their case in front of the township. Now you notice this little blotch up here, and we'll talk about that on the next slide. Right, I think the biggest change to this is actually not Thompson and US 23. It would be Fenton and Thompson Road, right? Because the plan currently, right, has a little bit of low density residential, mobile home park, future land use category. But now for the 2022, what we're showing is, next slide, would be high density residential and then another commercial node at the intersection of Fenton and Thompson Road. When you look at where commercial is available, right, it sort of stops for the township just past the Fenton Leroy section, but then going north, it doesn't really exist until pretty much Hill Road, I think would be the next, commercial area along Fenton. So there might be an opportunity for having some of that localized commercial uses that would service the traffic on Fenton Road there. And then high density, it provides opportunity for those that are looking to maximize or take advantage of the water that's coming in for development. Now, what's important to consider is that when you're looking at a future land use plan, it doesn't affect the zoning to start out with, right? So when a project comes in for a rezoning, it has to go through the process, right? There's public hearings involved. You match it against the future land use plan. You match it against how the development character of the area is. So even though this is a change from medium density to high density, based on the services available, that use would be appropriate over there. So the plan also talks about transportation, right? Because again, right, the US 23 and Thompson Road Bridge is one of the important parts of the corridor. So on the next slide, it talks about the existing conditions. And what's key about it is that even Genesee County admits that this is an obsolete bridge. It's functionally obsolete. It works, but technically, but the level of service, when we look at the next map, shows that it's failing. And there's, without changes to the intersection there, you can't see new development, right? Because the level of services are already bad, and we don't want to make it worse. So the plan also talks about the concept plan that MDOT has put together. And so if we look at the next slide, it talks about having the roundabouts, improvements to the bridge, and improvements to the access to 23. And based on the concept from MDOT, this would help alleviate the traffic, improve flow, and would be a benefit to the surrounding businesses because cars would actually be able to get to them, which is definitely a problem on the west side. Next slide. So the plan also talks about design guidelines. And so we look at landscaping, right? So it talks about beefing up our landscape standards. We're talking about requiring native trees and make sure we look at the buffers next to residential uses to make sure that whatever comes in is limiting the impact they have to the neighboring properties. The next slide. We talk about building placement. Again, this comes from the 2009 design pattern, right? Where it talks about moving the buildings closer to the road, and that puts them more at a pedestrian scale, so it promotes walkability. Next slide. Parking. Talks about where parking should be located. Essentially, not in the front if possible. It should be in the sides or rear, but if it has to be in the front, it has to be properly screened. You know, we're looking at the Miller Industries right now, and that's one of the things that was put into the planned unit development agreement was no parking in the front, because Thompson, you know, how it looks on Thompson Road is important to the township. It's our entrance to the township, and we need to make sure that as we move forward with new developments, that they meet the design guidelines that we've set out. Talk about access and circulation, right? So from a traffic standpoint, one of the things you want to do is minimize conflict points. Well, how do you do that? You minimize where people can go in and out. So if you limit the number of driveways, but encourage shared access, everyone is still easily able to get to where they're trying to go, but they're doing so in a safer manner. Road design, right? We talked about Thompson Road Bridge, how it needs to be widened. We need to improve Thompson Road west of the interchange, bring it up to ASHTO standards, make it a four-season road, have the appropriate number of lanes, and we need to promote roundabouts. You know, a good location based on talking with the county could possibly Thompson Road and Fenton Road to keep that traffic moving, and so people don't get stopped at the light. And an important part of this as a whole is promote complete streets. So that means that when appropriate, provide sidewalks, walkways, or bike paths. That doesn't mean that every road has to have one, but it means that it has to be looked at in the context of the development that's going on and what future development may be. Walkability. So what's already been in place been in the planning phase for 15 years has been a 10-foot path along the south side of Thompson Road and 5-foot path along the north side of Thompson Road. One of the big things that came out of public participation was having access to the schools and be able to walk from your subdivision and get to the schools safely. Right now, that's not really possible. And so having non-motorized pathways, right, that connect to the Lake Fenton schools, safe routes to schools is an important part of this plan. And then the zoning ordinance, right? We can't just have these as guidelines. We need to actually make them part of the zoning ordinance. So saying that, what's next? Well, starting in September, we are going to begin looking at zoning ordinance amendments based on everything we just talked about. But that's not where we have to stop. We have to take it one step further. Our master plan is a 5-year document, right? This is the 5th year. We need to begin looking at updating that. One of the things that happens when you get utilities where utilities weren't before is people wanting to continue to expand them. And it is important that we have a up-to-date plan in place so that we're able to maintain our rural character where it's necessary, where it's necessary, right? We need to look at the areas of the township that need to be preserved, that maintain their agricultural feel. And so we will be coming to you soon with a proposal for that. So the Planning Commission has adopted this plan, right, as required under the Planning Enabling Act. And now they have passed on a recommendation for the Township Board to also do so.
Thanks, Mike. Great report. Start off with, are there any questions or comments for Mike regarding the plan?
Yeah. First of all, well, I'll start easy here. The MDOT concept plan shows it's still a 2-lane bridge, but you're talking about expanding it to 4. I think with roundabouts, I can see where 2 lanes would work, because the bridge is actually, by the nature of it, you're not gonna go, you know, northbound and then go back southbound. So I can see where the semi-trucks would not cause a congestion. So I know we got $10 million for the bridge. Are we are we gonna do MDOT's concept plans, or are we gonna do your 3 or 4 lane concept?
Well,
Want me to answer?
Sure.
And the only reason why I'm gonna answer is because
That's fine.
I've been meeting with MDOT
Yep.
regarding that.
I just
Um,
think, say it's keeping it 2 lane and just improving on it could save money versus tearing a hole and making a 4 lane bridge when the roundabouts may take that issue away.
What happened, and I'll give you just a little short history, is when we got to the point when the planning commission started saying this is what we want to do, we knew the bridge, we couldn't do anything, so we put on a building moratorium, as you know.
Right.
So I went to MDOT and asked them, prior to going to Lansing, to ask for the $10 million to create just concepts.
Okay.
To give me an idea of what the project was gonna cost. I've had 2 or 3 Zoom meetings, and I've been to Lansing twice. Now that we've received the 10 million, it's been appropriated in this year's budget. It's all comes down to language of how it is in the appropriations and how it was passed. But what I've heard, and I should know exactly, but what they're saying is now that the money's been appropriated, now they'll take, instead of taking a 30,000 foot look, they're actually gonna take part of that 10 million and do the actual engineering. They will come back looking at the master plan, what we feel is going to happen over the next 10 to 15 years. And then what they do is they put together a 10-year and a 50-year plan. And they will come back to us with actual recommendations, MDOT will.
All right.
So right now, what you're seeing is
That's
not
fine.
the
I just
final
saw a
project.
discrepancy there.
All right.
Okay, another one is Jennings Road. We've got a bunch of residents on the east side of Jennings Road, north of Leering, south of Thompson, that now are in the town center district. Yeah, they're all blue. I'm counting, I don't know, 10 or 12, which I know are actually occupied dwellings, that are now a town center district. So what happens to them? Are they gonna get a store behind them, or if they wanna sell it, is that now gonna become, you can't sell it, you gotta turn it into retail, or what?
So, for them immediately, right, the zoning doesn't change, right? So they remain zoned residential. Now,
Okay.
for the parcel behind them,
But you have them in the same shade, I guess.
yeah, so that's future land use, right? That's not reflective of the actual zoning ordinance. So, the law is the zoning ordinance, the future land use plan is sort of what could happen in the future if development, goes in a certain direction. Could someone come in and build behind them? Sure. I think the original plan, PUD plan was was it residential for back there? So, again, it is definitely a possibility, but having these additional design guidelines in there, I would like to say that we would take that in consideration. You wouldn't have, part of it has having it as the town center is that you're looking at a planned development, and again, not looking at just strip malls. So by having it as part of a larger development, one of the things we would be looking at is what's the impact on the surrounding residential properties.
Are we gonna look at that, though?
I would say so. I mean, that's part of what the planning.
You even said it, you said once the infrastructure's in, it doesn't just stop here, growth continues. And that's my concern about this whole thing, is that we're gonna turn into Hill Road. And everybody knows my opinion on this, but we don't need another Hill Road here. We have one exit. I think part of the things, and I'm not necessarily going off on you, I'm
Sure.
just saying, part of the things that make this township what it is that we're not Hill Road or Silver Lake Road. And what you said, it has been my concern the entire time. You said, once this thing, the infrastructure's in, it's not gonna stop here. We're gonna continue to develop and grow. That's my concern about our
Well,
community.
and I think the answer to that is the next master plan as a township, right? Because when you look at the corridor stops at Jennings Road. Well, without talking about what the planning commissioners think, I think development stops at Jennings Road also.
Well,
And
I'm
I
seeing
think
on
that's
the
where
west
this,
side of Jennings Road, we got a bunch of houses, and then they're gonna be looking at whatever the hell goes on the east side of Jennings Road. That's what I'm looking at, this whole thing. I'm just not picturing us being Brighton or Lee Road, which the roundabouts kinda look that way, but, you know, I know we're not gonna be. But I just, my concern is, I'm telling you guys, my concern is, and always has been, the residents of the township now.
Yep.
Just my 2 cents, that's all. And nobody here is surprised by my opinion. I just wanted to put it out there. Thank you.
Well, I have to agree with you as well. I mean, I grew up in Linden, and so I've been around here for a long time, and it has grown a lot. I mean, just in, you know, the past 20 to 30 years, it has grown considerably. And I agree with you that we need to be smart about how we do this and somewhat conservative, because people do move out here for that reason. It's quiet, it's accessible to, you know, the metropolitan areas, but it's a quiet community where you can relax. I think it's a slippery slope, and I think some of the comments, you know, going out to the public and saying, what do you wanna see? I want a Costco, I want a big box store, I want a Trader Joe's, I want a Whole Foods, you know, I'm like, no, please get in your car and drive to Brighton, or get in your car and drive up to, you know, to Grand Blancs, somewhere other than here. So I totally agree with what you're saying, Mark. We need to be very careful about how we do this and where we put it in. And yeah, I see your concern for Jennings Road, and I see it on the
That's
other
horrifying.
side as well, along.
That is horrifying to me.
Well, and look
Yeah.
along Torrey, those are mainly homes as well. I mean, the golf course is over there, but other than that, that's big
I
open green
understand,
space.
and I know I'm dissenting opinion here, I just wanted and again, I wish we would do this. I wanna know what not the 100 people that show up for these meetings. I wish I knew what the township residents as a whole wanted for this township.
Yeah. Oh, you're right, and we don't get a lot of that feedback. But they've tried, right? I mean, you invite
No,
people
I know,
to
I
give your
understand that,
opinion.
I understand that, but there also comes a point where, you know, the people on Odell Road are gonna end up paying for some of this stuff until we get this ball rolling, that it's really not gonna benefit them, I don't see a lot of locally owned, local residents owning these things that are coming in here. Miller is a great guy, but I just, you know, this Thompson Road corridor, and I'll shut up after this, but, you know, I'm not doing anything to benefit Miller, I'm doing it to benefit the township residents. You know what I mean? That's just you know, you know, it's not gonna affect me where I live, I'm still gonna be in the dark at night, and, you know, my mom's still in the township, it's not gonna affect her, it's just, I'm just looking at the people immediately across from these things, and I'm picturing Hill Road, where there's 1 or 2 houses surrounded by Home Depot and Sara Lee Bakery. And there's one house in the middle that they're refused, and I feel for that person. Now, I understand that's 30, 40 years ago, I get it, for the bakery and stuff, but guys, we can go 5 minutes north and get what we want, we can go 3 minutes south and get what we want. We don't have to have it right here.
Mark, and I think you need to understand, I think everybody here agrees with you on the points that you're making. I don't think anybody disagrees with that at all. I think we're all coming from the same place. But what we're doing and why we're doing it, because I've only been here 22 years, which, you know, isn't chump change, but it isn't forever either. But what I see out there today is vastly different than what was there 22 years ago. Whole city of Fenton thing didn't exist 22 years ago. That grew while I've been here. So the reason I raise that is that the change is gonna happen. We would like to think that we would like to keep it the way it is, but that isn't happening now. And what Mike is correctly telling you, it's gonna happen faster now. And I understand, and
Well, my point is, it is gonna change, I understand that, but you also gotta look at what makes Fenton Township attractive.
Yeah.
We don't have this stuff.
Right.
You know, we got the convenience north and south of us,
Right.
5 minutes either way. We
Right.
don't have it here. That's why Fenton Township is, I think, we're the highest valued township in Genesee County by far.
And we're the bestest too.
I think so, and we gotta remember what makes us the best.
And I think what you're gonna see, because I think both of you are right. I mean, I think that's what's going on, but in the big picture, when you go back up to 50,000 or even 100,000 feet, when we get into that next master plan for the entire township, I don't think you're gonna see the big picture changing. You're gonna see kind of medium density residential stuff in the northwest quarter of the township right now isn't even to that point, okay? Now, I think over time, that's what's gonna happen to it. The ag that I know you love is eventually gonna go away, because that's just the way this process works over time.
When does it end?
Oh, it doesn't. I mean,
I understand, but I
yeah.
mean, you know, we just said it. Once it's here, it doesn't stop here, it continues. And I see it continuing to, you know, I've seen by the airport, the development's going, they're probably gonna get Linden water. All right, so we got water coming in that way, we've got coming in from the southwest, we got coming in from the northeast, and I don't think that is going to make this township the haven that it is. I don't see people, oh, I wanna move to Fenton Township because there's this here and there's this here, you know. I understand to me, water's a Pandora's box. Nobody's surprised by my opinion. And I'm looking at it right now. I'm looking at people that are not gonna have a say in it, and they're gonna be looking across the street at these monstrosities with lights on 24 hours a day. And we're not gonna make them turn the lights off at night. Parking lots don't do that. And
I'm
just
not
me.
against you, cause like
I
John, I
understand.
believe the same. At the same time, with development, you talk about 12 homes on a street. If that changes from the zoning that they are now, residential to commercial, let's just say. Most people, if you look at any development in any municipality across the state, those people's house went from $250,000 to $1 million.
Yep.
So and I do wanna commend the planning commission, of which is headed up by Mike, and probably one of the best real estate people I know.
Agreed.
And the process was an 8-month process. This wasn't something we did overnight. We decided we're gonna bring in water and we're gonna, we're gonna sit down as a board and decide what we want to go where. There was a board set up there, I think Mike had the board up there like 3 weeks after water was announced. People were coming in, they were having a blast, they wanted a Trader Joe's, they wanted this, they wanted that. Okay, that's just a few people that come in here, but we still have probably 100 a week. Very involved. 3 public hearings. That's what is into this, 4 public hearings. And 1 at the county, correct?
Oh, yep.
Yes,
I
and 1 at the
understand
county.
that.
Well, can I?
Sure.
So, the point is that we can all sit here and say we love I live here. I've lived here for 42 years. I'm not saying I want to see hotels on every corner. It's not the rule. I think the planning commission took into consideration, we want to keep our rural feeling. It's a very small part of Fenton Township that we're talking about developing. And you say that, everything is going to change. 42 years I've been getting off Thompson Road, and the same buildings, dilapidated buildings, are still sitting there. And there's a reason for that. And I don't see anything wrong by having new development, new buildings, new businesses in the same corridor. Thompson Road between Fenton Road, or let's just keep it from US 23 to Torrey Road, I don't see any of that change hurting anyone and anybody being upset about it. It doesn't change the lakes, it doesn't change our rural feeling, it doesn't change anything. Yes, so there's a few areas, but companies are only gonna come in, they still gotta go through the planning commission, they gotta go through the process. So, again, I'm not fighting against you, I'm just saying that water's coming, sewer's coming. The process that we're talking about tonight has the planning commission and the public done their job to say it's coming and this is what should happen. This is the way it should look. And we've done that process.
To the extent I can give you any comfort, I think when we go through this next master plan thing, which dictates 5 to 10 years what we're looking down the road, there's gonna be no sentiment that the commercial area should be expanded beyond the Thompson Road corridor that we're talking
But
about.
we're already down to Laring Road.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's not Thompson Road, that's a mile and a half south.
Yeah.
So now we're only 6 mile deep township, and actually there, we're not even 6 miles deep, we're about 4. And we're about halfway down now at Laring Road.
But if you go to square footage of the acreage
I
that's involved in the
understand.
district and
Yep.
compare it to the township, and I personally, think, you don't know until change happens, but I don't see for 50 or 60 years it growing outside the corridor for the commercial uses that we're talking about. Maybe I'm wrong, but I know when we go to do this master plan, the next 10 years, we're gonna be looking at either lower, medium density residential for whatever that percentage is that surrounds this area. And I don't see that changing that quickly. I mean, right now, the
You
core.
don't see ag going away?
Over a 50 to 100-year period, yes. I do.
Okay. Alright, I mean, fair.
That's the way it goes, you know, it's gonna happen. But right now, the corridor that we're doing, and we've been stupid if we didn't do what we did. We've gotta direct this development, because it's empty right now. That's all gotta fill in before you're ever gonna start pushing the boundaries out. And that isn't gonna happen overnight. I mean, even if we had a pool full of applicants, you know, you're 4 or 5 years out before a lot of them will be even hitting the ground. So, I don't see any change to the character, because I'm with you on what you're saying. I don't want you to feel like a dissenting opinion or, you know.
It's not.
That's not what you are. I think we all agree with what you're saying. Water, you can debate all day long. It's a two-edged sword. We're pumping out arsenic into our residents, and that's not good. So water gives you the opportunity to fix that. Does it come with headaches? Does it come with development? It does. There's no doubt about it. But what I'm trying to tell you is I think the vast majority of the township is gonna stay the character that you have grown up with and that you love now. I don't see that
It's not
changing.
just me, it's why Fenton Township is Fenton Township.
Right.
So, I mean,
I think your kids are, you know, they're gonna see pretty much what we have now. Is it gonna fill in and they're gonna be more commercial in the corridor? Absolutely. Are there still gonna be more subdivisions built? You bet your bottom bippy. I mean, they're starting to really pick up now. And once you get built out, you know, that's the way you stay the vast majority of the time, just because it's not worth the resources to knock everything down and start over again. So I think what you'll see in the big long-term picture is some, you know, higher commercial use along Thompson Road, but it's gonna be surrounded by a bedroom community, much like what we have now.
Okay.
You're not a dissent, Mark, we agree with you. It's just,
It doesn't sound like it. When I started the process, and I'm going back, I don't even think I was clerk yet, so 20-plus years ago, we started the Thompson Road corridor. We always dreamed about water, and with Vince's leadership, we're making it happen. But in my mind, and I think a lot of others, we were looking for things that directly benefit the residents. Case in point, I was part of selling a home over the weekend. It was on the market 2 days, it had 19 showings and sold. And the majority of the 19 showings would make a comment similar to, excuse my French, damn, I love the homey residential feeling, and the only time they spent would be nice if we had some service areas, and I'm talking restaurants, you know, shops, things like that, where they could go get out of their car at noon, shop half the day, go to supper, go to entertainment at night, and drive home without ever moving their car. And maybe I need to educate myself. I'm not sure what mixed use really means, because with the exception of Miller Industries and the glass company, the things that have happened in Fenton Township, and I'm trying to keep my thoughts going, have not really been any benefit for the resident. Case in point, gotta go there, Mike. Down at the end of North Long Lake Road. Beautiful little breakfast, lunch restaurant. It's as nice as you ever eat there. The food's good. And there are community people that own it. And then, here we go. They get to put up a 10-foot fence across the back. And we let another resident move his equipment, be it a truck, be it a 30-foot crane. If one asks about it, the individual says, well, I'm putting up a screening. Yeah, if he's gonna put up a 30-foot screening, because we have people parking trucks back there. I'm talking 18-wheeler trucks coming out a one-lane driveway. If you go further down Torrey Road, we have a beautiful area there that at one time was gonna be a retirement home and stores. And it's, only things storing there right now are trucks, boats, and stuff. I really hope we look at it, that we provide services to the residents before we allow, I mean, right now, if you look at Thompson Road, the last few things have not really been good. There's been many attempts, and maybe, like I say, I'm gonna sit with either you, John, or Mike, and tell me what this really means. Because to me, it sets off alarms, and it might not be close.
Well, what's interesting, Bob, is I sat in those 2002 meetings right out here.
Yep.
The newspaper's here, took a picture of me and Bonnie, and it's still on my refrigerator from my wife. I don't know why. But we did exactly what you described. We talked about a town center area that was walkable. We talked about all the kinds of restaurants and the movie theaters and the people that participated from the public. Everybody was on board with that. Nobody told us that Tom Miller's current building had already been zoned as a PUD and approved for that use. So we're sitting around planning all these pie in the sky kind of stuff when the reality that was facing us in the township, and it predated me because it was before I was on the planning commission, I didn't know that it existed. And if somebody had simply said, hey guys, I hate to break it to you, but this has been approved for this kind of use. Because if you look right now, that area between the highway and Torrey Road, we can wish whatever we want, but because of what is there and what's gonna be there, it's gonna be industrially looking. So, Mike's point, what we try to do is mitigate the look, because we can say whatever we want. And this is going to the other point you raised. What we can't do is we cannot dictate the market. We cannot say, you will build mom and pop restaurants. Okay, we can't do that. The market dictates what develops, and that, you know, and that's the corner of Thompson and Torrey. We were told Trader Joe's. We were told, you know, these, and it was concept. There's no guarantees. We all knew that. But we were sold a nice piece of pie from the sky, and it would have been great. People would have loved it, and it sat there for 15 to 20 years because there was no water.
Yep, never gonna happen.
Okay, and would it have happened had water come 15 or 20y years earlier? I
No.
don't know. I don't think Trader Joe's would ever happen because the demographics
I don't
still
either.
aren't there.
I don't either.
And-
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I'm just saying Tom Miller's building and the glass company are the two I hung up on. Would have no problem if a restaurant or another store come next to them, other than their parking spots would be used by people going to those restaurants. And I guess I'm just hoping that we develop enough areas where the people in the township see an advantage to it. I think one of the things that we've got to do, and we're doing a good job of it right now, is bringing the water in, not making it hey, you didn't have it at 7 o'clock, 7:10, you got it. It's something that they can get used to. The loop 1, loop 2, there's reasons for there. And I agree with you, the better we can get good water to the people. But I just think, if you look at the homes Mark talked about, those people paid a lot of money to have those huge backyards. Some of them are
They're 5
quarter of a mile.
They're 5 and 10s through there.
Yeah.
I looked at them before I built my house. I was
Yeah.
thinking about buying one now.
So I guess what I'm saying, shame on me for not really understanding what mixed use means. And I'm gonna pester the hell out of you two. Till either I know, doesn't mean I'll change my ideas, but at least I feel if it all of a sudden became car sales and other big factories, we're probably gonna catch flack for it. Thank you.
One more thing, I promise, I'm done. I understand water's coming to one, I get it, and the phase 1, just the Thompson Road, I've accepted that. It's when we start doing the loop, is where I'm starting, the phase 2, the loop down, Jennings, Larry, and Torrey. That's what I'm gonna kick and scream about every step of the way. 1, I get it. 1, Thompson Road, it is what it is. Water may probably bring nicer businesses here than what we got. I get that too, and I'm okay with that. I've accepted that I lost. But it's the 2, it's the loop that starts, now we're getting away from Thompson Road. There's my big problem.
Well, you know the main reason why though, right? Is to get water to the school.
Yes, I know. I
And-
do. I do know that.
So,
I-
yeah.
And
I
why would
don't-
you wanna deny, sorry.
Yeah, I
True.
mean, I think I've addressed that issue.
Yeah,
well
I mean,
enough.
truly,
just-
why would you deny someone? We're not forcing anyone to tap into it. You've got
We're
probably,
not.
along that line, you've probably got, if the county's right, 8 out of 10 of those wells have arsenic in them. They're doing some type of form of arsenic mitigation.
Yep.
We're doing this at one of the,
But,
most
okay,
opportune
that's
times
fine.
because of the money. To get this done, all 4 of our schools will now not be using very expensive arsenic mitigation, bringing them safe municipal water, and everybody along the line. Forget the development. I don't understand why you're against bringing safe drinking water to our residents.
Because it's not bringing it to everybody in the township, it's only bringing it to the schools.
You
and
have to start
Robinsons.
somewhere. You have to start
Well,
somewhere.
that's-
Everybody, I can
there
sit
you
down and
go.
have dinner with
That's what I'm-
Sobs, and you know what he says to me? As soon as it gets down there, I want a special assessment district. I want my whole neighborhood. It'll happen.
Absolutely.
Water's
yeah.
gonna go through the township, but it's
Wow.
gonna take time. But this is an opportune time in phase two with the money that we have to do it without the whole expense being on the backs of our residents. So if you wanna wait 10 years to do it, then tell the taxpayer, we're gonna do it in 10 years, but you know what, you're gonna have to pay for it in a big way.
Okay, but we're doing it to benefit the schools, we've already got arsenic mitigation in the schools. It's not gonna benefit anybody else that is a quarter mile down the road that wants to tap into water that can't. So, it's not like we're doing this big savior thing. The schools have been around since the sixties, as far as I know. We've dealt with it, my kids are third generation Lake Fenton, been here all my life. There's ways to get around that, and to come in and say, that is why we wanted to bring the water just for the schools. The schools have already addressed that. They've been dealing with it for 50 years.
And it's an annual cost every year.
It is.
that taxpayers pay.
Their taxpayers not even gonna benefit from this, are gonna pay for this water. You can say Miller's gonna pay a big chunk, but you know what? And I understand we're getting money for it, but don't tell me the rest of the township isn't gonna pay for this water district that they get no benefit from.
Any other comments from the board?
Well, just that still is sort of my concern, is the funding of I realize we've got a ton of money that we wouldn't have got at any other time, and I appreciate that, but I guess I do still wanna see more detail on the funding whenever we can get that.
Absolutely, and that's why it's been held off. The city of Linden is considering, and small changes like that are $1 million differences to our residents. So at this point, you know, I talked to Tom, we could have put it to the board tonight. We can do it 2 weeks from now, we can do it a month from now. There's not a hurry, it's 2 years away anyway.
Right.
You know, the county certainly wants to know what we're doing, so we can buy materials at, present dollars, and not, because they are willing to expend the funds to buy the steel that we would need, in today's dollars, not in 2-year dollars.
Right.
In inflationary dollars. So I probably will be bringing that to the board in the next month to 6 weeks, but there's so many elements that are still up in the air. I wanna make sure that when I come to the board, I know exactly what dollars we're gonna be paying, and
Right, yeah, I just, cause, I am concerned that, large portions of the township aren't going to, noticeably benefit from that. I mean, there might be some services and stuff that are near,
well, let me just say this, phase 2, we put it in.
right,
If we don't put it in, let's say phase 2 cost $3 million. If we don't put it in, and we wait 4 or 5 years, it's a $10 million
Right, it'll be
project,
much
100% on the back of our taxpayers, and these people will never get it.
right,
For another 5 years, if we can do this in 2 years, using the money that's out there right now. So if we as a township don't go out and get the money, someone's gonna get the money. And they're gonna pay for similar projects, and they're gonna look at this board 4 or 5 years from now and go, are you serious? You could've had the opportunity to get $10 million for a bridge and you didn't get it?
right. And I fully agree that we should be acting, if we're gonna act, we should be acting while we have that money.
Right.
Because that's not,
Well, I think it's more than that. I think it would be criminal if
So-
we had this money available
And we
and
didn't
we
go after
have
it.
arsenic laced water and we didn't act. They should throw me off of here. That is, I think it's criminal.
And we are elected
Mr.
officials.
Supervisor,
But, yeah,
Yes.
you don't get to throw me off.
I'm sorry, but can I say something?
Absolutely. This is our township engineer, Melissa and Alan Lawrence. This is Alan. Go ahead, Alan.
I guess I'm just gonna talk to engineering side, but, one of the things that keeps coming up is that phase 2 loop. And I guess that is my fault. There has to be a loop on that water line. You cannot dead end it. And when we looked at how to do that, we tried to take in the largest amount of residents that we could. They don't have to hook up, but they can hook up if they're having arsenic problems or if their well fails. And to take care of the schools, some condo units, everything else, so we moved it the direction that we did for a purpose. Also for the fact that we may have the city of Linden wanting to tie in. It was the best route possible for the residents, for the township as a whole, and that was based on trying to take care of the health issues. I apologize for butting in, but I wanted to get that straight.
Thanks, Alan. All right, are there any more questions or comments from the board? And again, I will reiterate what a great board we have, because this type of conversation is exactly what we get elected for, so, anyway.
We won't go shoot each other in the parking lot when we're done.
So
We'll all go sit and, no, we can't all sit and have a beer, I was gonna say, because only 3 of us can get together, but.
I have a clarification question for Mike on the process. So we're looking at adopting this plan tonight, but you've spoken, you alluded to, then we will change the zoning, we will fine tune the parameters of exactly what can be in each of these groups. And since our master plan ends this year, all of this will be carried forward into the new master plan. So this is not the last time we're gonna discuss this. There'll be a lot of fine tuning going forward. My understanding is correct?
A lot.
A lot, and not only
Thank
that,
you.
Christine, Mike and I talk about this at least, what, twice a week, 3 times a week?
A day?
I mean, a day. He walks into my office and we're talking about it all the time.
Right.
And one of the things that Mike and I have discussed, and I've been very, because I am gonna come to the board, and we have to ask this board for money for a master plan.
Sure.
Because I believe that though master plans can last 10 years, we have a lot of changes coming on.
Absolutely.
And during that master plan process, a lot of this, by hiring the right firm, and Mike's got some amazing ideas. Last year, this board, you know, we chose, I was in support of the firm from Ann Arbor. This year, Mike and I have talked about, Mike said, you know, I think the best thing to do is, this is the way we're gonna do the RFP, but not only that, let's throw it to the planning commission. They eat this every day. They've been looking at this now for 8 months. We've got good people on it. Let them look at this master plan, work with the company that's hired on the master plan. So by the time it comes to us, because you know what, we get a packet.
Right.
And we look at it, but I feel a lot more comfortable knowing that that 8-month process that, you know, Treasurer Tucker and Mike and the planning commission went through, I have to be satisfied because they've done everything they can do. Now, you can say, well, only 500 people showed up at all those public meetings. We sent out notices to everybody. We asked the residents what they want. If they had a big problem with, like, I don't want to do this, if Mike would have came to me and said, hey, 400 to 500 people are going to shoot arrows at you if we do this, then we wouldn't be where we're at today. We didn't see that. The negativity wasn't there, was there, Mike?
No.
None. And again, if I was sitting in this seat, hearing every day, what are you doing? Don't change, don't bring in water, I don't want water, it's always been the opposite. Because I'm gonna be the first one to be thrown out. So, you know, that's, anyway, any other questions?
The only thing I'm gonna do though is at the beginning, before we started, I asked Mike a question that goes to the point that you just made about the zoning. You know, should we be lifting the moratorium until we've gone through that process? And I will, at the risk of putting words in your mouth, and essentially, Mike assured me that the zonings that are there are compatible with the master plan that's being presented, that we're okay lifting the moratorium, because that was a concern for mine. I didn't wanna have this big master plan and then find out something's zoned completely inconsistent with this, and then tomorrow morning we get an application that we don't have a defensible way to say no to.
Well, just to clarify on that, the zoning, when you look at the vacant property that would be likely to be developed, its zonings are compatible with the future land use plan. But a lot of the properties that may wish to be developed their zoning does not match the master plan, but that's actually a good thing, because they'd have to come in for a rezoning. Public hearing from the planning commission, public hearing in front of the township board. If it's a planned unit development, then you have that additional ability to put additional criteria on it. So when we look at the ordinance as a whole, the developable properties within the corridor, I would say, are zoned properly for what development we may see. But the ones that, the high value targets would require some sort of rezoning. And I think that's, you know, in the township's best interest for that.
And what, in elaboration, what Mike said was that, you know, the types of developments that you expect to come in, a lot of them are gonna require special use permits. And that's an even heightened level of scrutiny, when you get to that point. So, you know, I got comfort from what he told me, because I was toying with the idea of keeping the moratorium in place until we went through the zoning, because we're meeting Thursday night. I don't know that we're doing that, but you know, he's an evil taskmaster. He's put us on 2 meetings a month now, so you know, we're gonna be slugging our way through it soon. But I wanted to make sure before we lifted the moratorium that we had our defenses built.
Yeah, I mean, I really truly believe they are doing an amazing job. I mean, when Mike comes to me and says, hey, I got some news for you, we're gonna probably have to go to 2 meetings, because they wanna work through this the right way, so. All right, I'm gonna, if there's no other questions or comments?
Yeah, I'm gonna say something. John?
Yeah.
Cause I know this isn't the water thing, this is just to get this whatever. I just want, when these, and I know I'm gonna lose here. When I vote on this, if I vote yes, I want you to put the township residents that live here now, I already want them weighted more than a vacant piece of land, that we can get more. We don't need, we're the richest community without this stuff. We don't need it.
I think the scale's already set that way.
I want you, when you're the planning commission.
I don't have to change anything to do that.
In charge.
I think
Well, I'm just telling you,
that's the
I
way
want
we're loaded
you.
already.
Okay.
And these changes aren't directed to, hey, this will help development of this parcel or this quarter or whatever. No, that's not what it's about.
If it's grandma in the house versus that,
Yeah.
I want you to go in there favoring the grandma, okay?
I think if you zoom in on a planning commission meeting, and Mike, you could certainly send out a link to
I'm
every
just throwing
board
it out there. I
member.
want it-
No. I think you're gonna see that not just Treasurer Tucker, but Mike and the rest of the planning commission have the same thoughts you do. They're not gonna sit there and start building, 18 hotels on, we're never gonna look like Hill Road. We can't now. I mean, really. I'm not saying that we're not gonna have beautiful, maybe a commercial building, assisted living, whatever. I'm just saying that I agree with John. I think, number one, we're decades from doing that, down the road. So, and I think that we have to trust, just like the people that voted us in are trusting us to do what's right. And we have to take a first look and allow them to do their jobs. I come from business, you delegate, and we're delegating, and our job is oversight.
You want me to quit talking and put it to a vote?
All right. Any more questions? Again, I want to thank Mike, you and the planning commission. Please let them know, every member, how much I appreciate all the hard work you put into this. It is a long journey of 8 months, and I really do, and I think the board appreciates it. No matter how they feel, whether it's from Mark's side to, John, or everything in between, I'm sure we all appreciate what you've done. All right, resolution number 2022-28. Kirk Kluge, will you please present the resolution?
Yes, 2022-28, adopt the Thompson Road corridor plan as submitted, including all text, charts, tables, maps, and descriptive and other material. I'll move the resolution.
Second.
All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Crew, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Kessler,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Lorraine,
Yes.
Cottrell,
Yes.
Gopal, I vote yes. Tucker,
Yes.
resolution passes.
Thanks, Bob. All right, next under new business is, as John had talked about, is the repeal of the Thompson Road corridor moratorium. Township zoning minister, Dean, will you kind of just?
I think John just said it all.
Yep, he did.
I was quoting you, Mike.
You got a roll, I'd call for.
Any other questions from the board? Comments at all? Okay, I need a motion to repeal the development moratorium within the Thompson Road corridor, effective immediately.
So moved.
I'll support.
All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Krug, will you call the roll?
Yes, Tucker,
Yes.
Lorraine,
Yes.
Gopel.
Yes.
Kessler,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Contra,
Yes.
and I vote yes, motion passes.
The board so allows, I'm gonna ask.
Not on this planning
All right.
commission, but I've been to South Line, I've been a lot of
Well,
different
that's
places.
that's why they're
Yeah.
them and we're us,
Right.
so.
And in the absence of our supervisor,
What,
Well,
what,
is it time to adjourn?
what committee do we appoint him to?
Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
I appreciate that. I'll lighten the water next time. All right, next under new business is Enid Boulevard and Golden Shores Street Improvement Special Assessment District. Recommendation on construction bids. Operations Manager, will you please review?
Yes, in the packet, there's a memo outlining, and there's also a copy of the bid tabulation there from the Road Commission. The Road Commission bid the Enid Boulevard and Golden Shores projects together, and unfortunately, I think due to the timing of their bid, they received only one bid, and it was, in the case of Enid Boulevard, about 80% over estimate, and Golden Shores 92% over estimate. Normally, because the revised costs
Get used to it.
exceeded by the estimate by more than 10%, we'd hold a hearing to give property owners the opportunity to provide input on whether or not to proceed. I think that would be a waste of time at this point. I think that, not that it's going to come in underestimate if we rebid it, but I believe if we reject the bid and ask the road commission to rebid it during the winter, you'll get more bids and the bids will be more competitive. It may still be more than 10% over. I don't think it'll be 80 and 90% over. And so my recommendation is to reject the bid and ask the road commission to rebid for 2023.
All right, thanks, Tom. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, all right, need a motion to reject all bids for road improvement projects within the Enid Boulevard and Golden Shores Street Improvement Special Assessment Districts and request the Genesee County Road Commission to rebid the projects in 2023.
I'll move the motion.
Support.
All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Lorraine,
Got a question on there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
sorry.
Sorry, Vince, I wanna get out of here too. My question is so I circulated that petition back in September of last year. We presented it to the board, in October. November 1st, the resolution was passed and the special assessment district was created. So, do I have to sell ice cubes to the Eskimos again to get signatures, or is it, there's not a time frame of when?
The district.
No, we did, when we came here in October, our thing was, is we thought for sure that there was gonna be plenty of time to get on for spring bids. And the county kept saying it was the township's fault, township, which I love you, Tom, don't worry about that, but, and when did Enid Boulevard get thrown into our mix? Because they didn't come with us when we did when I went and circulated with the ice cubes to the Eskimos and got all those percentages up there.
Well, it's just another special assessment district that the road commission, because they were on the same timeline as you, are close to it, they decided to bid them together thinking they might get a better price. Based on because of the timing, they didn't. And the delays I can't really speak to. The road commission had everything they needed, like you say, at the end of last year, with the thought that they bid it last winter, we'd built the roads in the spring, it didn't get done.
And it's exactly true. My son's an estimator for Detroit Edison, and he said, it's the way it is, Mom. They have to have 3 bids. You only got 1. That right there tells you that nobody wanted to bid it. And so the people that did bid it, the one company, and they were 80% over. I mean, it was just a little
I don't wanna contradict Tom, but I think we have to be very conscious of the fact that it could get worse before it gets better.
And I understand that. I
Okay.
mean, I'm dealing with
The-
roofers right now, and I'm seeing the
The
price of
federal
shingles
government
going up every week.
is
so-
about ready to dump, I don't know how many billion, trillion dollars that we're talking about for infrastructure projects, and they're dumping it all at once.
I just wondered why they couldn't have bid it last, when we were here in October and the resolution was passed November 1st, why couldn't we have gotten it bid in November? And what would the bid have been compared to, the guy at the county said they didn't even have, the bids weren't going out until, well, I was in Nashville when I got a phone call, so it was probably, August 8th was when he told me it was going out for a 2-week bid, but that was actually the date of the cutoff, so it had gone out before that. But they only got one bid. So therefore, Tom has to squash it because you have to have 3 in order to pick one anyway. But my thing is why couldn't they bid it last November? And, I mean,
I don't
I don't know when you
That I can't answer the question.
And they don't have any curb and gutter over there. They're totally different than our subdivision. So,
Right, it was 2 separate projects just bid together as a package deal.
I mean, I'm cool. If I don't gotta go and, take Girl Scout cookies and sell the ice cubes to the Eskimos, I'm not good with that.
Special assessment district's been,
It's
I'm
there.
sorry,
It's-
it's there.
It
So,
stays.
Okay.
we'll just set it out for bid, and I can't speak to why the county waited so long, Tom, unless you know.
It took them a long time to get the project designed to the point where they could bid it. I can't explain
I
why.
I had an engineering cost when I went door to door to give the people what their price was gonna be per
Preliminary
household.
estimate is what we used to create the district.
Right, and that was their estimate.
And then we approved the contract right after that, and then it's in the road commission's hands to design it and bid it out, and that's where the slowdown happened.
Right. But I'm good with.
Well, just so you know, I had a conversation with Congressman Kildee last week. I attended a meeting down at the county on the infrastructure and the money that's being rolled out, and we did have that conversation. And the federal government, Congress, and all branches of government, well, 2 of the branches of government, in their infinite wisdom, decided to dump all this money. It should have been probably spread out over 4 to 5 years, because most of these jobs are gonna be 2 to 3 years out anyway, but they dumped all, I think it's a total of 1.3 or 1.4 trillion. So they dumped it all out to these municipalities to give out, whether it's in ARPA funds, infrastructure funds, and there's only so many people that can put in sewers, only so many companies that can put in, or build bridges, do roads, and you throw all this money out there, and Tom and I have this conversation, what they would normally bid $10 on, they throw out 20 and take it or leave it. So, I don't think it's,
50.
as John said, I don't think it's gonna get any better, so it's just, maybe Congress will find a way to fix their,
Yeah, okay.
I mean, our
Sure.
road has had nothing done since 1980. That was when the roads were put in. There's only 2.5 roads, that's it. 1980 was when they were built. Nothing's been done at all. Just patching, cow patching.
well, we will, I'm sure Tom will be on it. We'll make sure that the county
Oh, I
knows
know.
that in early spring, and I give you my word, I'll stay on, Tom and I meet every morning, so we'll talk about it, make sure that it gets bid. All right?
I
Chris?
just have a couple of questions. I live on the same court. I was here for the estimate meeting, and I asked, what's your guys' contingency plan when it comes over? You guys told me that probably wasn't gonna go over. Well, I live there, I do this for a living. My question is, I've never dealt with the township, so a couple of questions. When you start getting these bids, do we have any say-so on who's going to do the work? Because I don't want Joe's Asphalt coming in when you could have had somebody else because of the cheapest bid. We gonna have any say-so on this? Because there's a lot of shady customer companies out there.
The bids are handled by the road commission, not by the township, and they will only accept qualified bidders. They have to prove that they are capable of doing the work, and it's usually companies they've dealt with before.
23 from M59 to 96 in Livingston County, 18% of that had to be remilled up because the mix didn't pass inspection, but they use Ajax all the time. That's
where I'm worried about, is they're just gonna pick the lowest bidder, or are we gonna actually have somebody that we can, you know, cause there are a lot of, you know, companies out there, like Cadillac was the one that bid it on this. Problem was Cadillac was gonna be hauling out from the Wixom plant, which is not as good as the Ace plant up in Bay City or Saginaw. I believe your bid says that they're gonna use 11A. 11A is not a very good binder. 13A or 15A is. 15A actually is going into all the Amazon right now, so that's what I'm kind of worried about. I tried getting the bid or the estimate or what they're going to do from the Genesee County Road Commission, and it's like top secret. They're like Congress, you can't have it, you know, why?
Well, again, the road commission controls it, these are public streets. For just FYI, the bid spec does say 13A HMA, hot mix asphalt.
See, he told me it was 11A.
Yeah.
Is it Johnson? Johnston up there?
See, that's not who I
I don't
talked
know.
to Richard Hill, so I don't know.
Yeah, I'd be happy to provide copies of
Richard did tell me
this.
that they're willing to come to a meeting, so when it gets to that point again, maybe we can, you know, ask them questions or whatever before they actually pick who it is, or.
Well, what we can do is, once we have a bid we think we can run with, we can actually have the road commission representative, at the hearing. So then the residents can also ask questions about it.
All right. Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
We still need that motion?
We motion the second.
Oh, we did motion
Oh,
second?
yeah.
All right, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Question in the interim.
All right, sorry about that. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Lorraine,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Kessler,
Yes.
Gopel,
Yes.
Tucker,
Yes.
I vote yes, Reed,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thanks, Bob. All right, next under new business is resolution number 2022-29. Schedule a public hearing on 2022 Fenton Township Fire Protection Special Assessment District, or Special Assessment Role. In keeping with past practices and policies, the board needs to schedule a public hearing at the September 20th meeting for the 2022 Fenton Township Fire Protection Special Assessment Role. The proposed role maintains the assessment amount at $65 per parcel. A resolution has been prepared to formally schedule a public hearing. Any comments or questions from the board? Okay, I need a motion to adopt number 2022-29 as presented. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Clerk Krug, will you please present the resolution? I'm trying to get us through this.
I'll present
I'm
it.
trying.
Go ahead, no. Acknowledges the filing special assessment role with the clerk and its availability for review until the public hearing. Schedules a public hearing on the special assessment role at the September 20th board meeting. Directs the clerk to publish the notice of hearing according to statute. Repeals any conflicting resolutions. I'll move the resolution.
I'll support.
All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Kessler,
Yes.
Gopel. Krug votes yes. Reed,
Yes.
Lorraine.
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Tucker,
Yes.
resolution passes.
All right, thanks, Bob. All right, moving on, next new business is resolution number 2022-30, accelerated foreclosure on abandoned properties. I'm sure we've all reviewed our memos that's in our packets. Tom, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, it's same as what we've been done every year for the last several years, but it needs to be done every year, just keep it correct.
That's what's stupid, that we gotta do this every year.
Every year.
This is only the
Right.
50th time I've seen it. There's no logical argument against it, so it's just silly. It's just silly.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none. Resolution number 2022-30. Clerk Krug, will you please present the resolution?
Yes, resolves that abandoned tax delinquent property will be identified and inspected and may be certified as certified abandoned property under certification of abandoned property for Accelerated Foreclosure Act and subject to accelerated forfeiture and foreclosure under the General Property Tax Act. I'll move the resolution.
Second.
All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Lorraine,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Krug votes yes. Kessler,
Yes.
Gopel.
Yes.
Tucker,
Yes.
Resolution passes.
All right, thanks, Bob. All right, last under new business is proposed revised employment agreements for the assessor, fire chief, zoning administrator, and operations manager. Upon taking over as supervisor, I had advised the board that I was gonna take the 4 exempt management positions and do annual reviews. Said annual reviews were done. The process is, it's a great process. They actually are sent self-evaluation. Self-evaluations come back to myself. Then we sit down for probably about a 30-minute review. We go over their job, performance, things like that. Then what I do is put together a packet for the personnel committee. I call a meeting of the personnel committee. We sit down, we talk. I either make recommendations or take comments with regards to, they're able to review not only their self-evaluations, my comments. I usually have a list of 10 to 15 questions that I ask. And all of that is shared with the personnel committee, and then we decide on any changes in compensation. That is in your packet. So those were, again, the recommendations that are being presented to the board have all been supported by the personnel committee and coming to you today. So are there any questions or comments from the board?
I guess my question is, did the compensation, because we're only seeing this version and I don't recall what the prior year was, did the compensation change for any of these 4 personnel?
You didn't give,
They weren't markup, they were just the final versions.
Right.
yes,
Okay.
there were increases on all 4.
Okay. Thank you.
I apologize for that. I thought they were going to show previous and before. I thought, because you did like a 10-year for me, right? I think, or something like that, and I thought that was in there, and I apologize for that.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, any other questions or comments? Okay, I need a motion to approve revised employment agreements for our assessor, Julia Wilson, our fire chief, Ryan Volz, zoning administrator Michael Dean, and operations manager Thomas Broker, as presented.
So
They
moved.
should be separate motions.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
The other thing we're doing, I think we're making them retro, right? Is that-
Oh, yeah, I should mention that
Yeah, that date is.
I went, I usually do them, I think it's, I did last year's in April. This year, because of union negotiations, I felt it would be better to do that after negotiations, so I held off. So I felt, and so did the personnel committee felt it would be fair to make their pay retro until when they actually should have received the reviews. So, thanks. I forgot to bring that back up. So you want me to, do I have to?
Yeah, you do.
I don't think so, Jack. So anyway, no, I'm just kidding. I'm just
Hold my beer.
Amanda said we did.
Hold my
I was gonna
beer.
say, there you go. There's the vote for Amanda
Okay,
right
there's
there. Yeah, I would call Amanda. Amanda said yes. All right, I'm gonna have to change my motion. All right, need a motion to approve a revised employment agreement for assessor Julia Wilson as presented.
Effective.
Support.
Effective town.
April 19th, 2022.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, Tom.
Also, April 19th.
You made the motion? Second, but it hasn't been.
Hold on one second, just wanna make sure I got that right. All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Clerk Crew, will you please call the roll?
Krug votes yes. Patrick?
Yes.
Kessler?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Gopel?
Yes.
Tucker?
Yes.
Lorraine?
Yes.
Motion passes.
This is-
I'm waiting to do the next one already.
It's all right, it's been a long meeting. All right, moving on. I need a motion to approve revised employment agreement for our fire chief, Ryan Bolts, as presented, effective April 19th, 2022.
So moved.
Support.
All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Reed?
Yes.
Gopel?
Yes.
Tucker?
Yes.
Kessler?
Yes.
Lorraine?
Yes.
I vote yes. Patrick?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thanks, Bob. All right, I need a motion to approve revised employment agreement for our Township Zoning Administrator, Michael Deem, effective April 19th, as presented.
So moved.
So moved. Support?
Motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Patrick?
Yes.
Kessler?
Yes.
Krug votes yes. Gobel?
Yes.
Tucker?
Yes.
Lorraine?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, last, okay, I need a motion to approve a revised employment agreement for Operations Manager Thomas Broker, effective April 19th, as presented.
So moved.
Support.
All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Yes.
Gobel?
Yes.
Tucker?
Yes.
Lorraine?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
Krug votes yes. Reed?
Yes.
Kessler?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Jack wants y'all to know that he feels better now.
I do.
He feels a lot better. And just so our residents know, the four that we have just spent time talking about and affording raises, they do an amazing job for the township residents, each and every one of them. Being on this board for over a decade, you don't have a lot of interaction with the management team, and becoming supervisor, I'm able to spend time with them every day, and we have an amazing team that works for this township, and I mean it. That's, sometimes people say that, I truly mean it. We have a great team that works for the township, and I'm happy to have the opportunity to work with them each and every day, to review them, and to set forth what we did today. All right, moving on to the next business order is board comment. Is there anyone on the board that has additional comments or concerns? Hearing none?
Okay.
That's excellent.
Scratch that one. Keep going.
Mark's got a message for you down there.
Any board, any additional board comment?
After that?
Come on, Mark. All right.
We did have a resident, you better wanna, he's still here.
I'm not,
Yeah.
I'm not there yet.
Oh, all right, all right.
All right, I do want to inform the board that the opening of the 3 bids for our North Road Lake bypass, taking the sewer from going down Torrey, that bypass, I was called this afternoon by Township Engineer Alan Lawrence, and he informed me that the bids were opened up at 2 p.m., and I'm happy to inform this board, with everything that's going on, that our engineers had thrown us a price of about $315,000 about almost a year ago, 9 months, I think, when we started this process. And the bid came in, and Cook was the lowest bidder, and it came in right on target. So our taxpayers should be very pleased in the sense that
They need to work for the road.
we did, yeah. That,
Do you need a hole? We can help you. We need pipe? We can help you.
We could run it through your pool and save money after.
there you go. Just dump it right in.
Yeah, it's already cemented on both sides.
Right.
With a golf course?
Yeah, right in front of the putting green.
I didn't say that, you did.
All right, the next business order is public comment on agenda or non-agenda items. We will now open up the meeting for public comment on agenda or non-agenda items. First, is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the board on agenda or non-agenda items? All right, hearing none, we will now go to, is there anyone that is attending this meeting via Zoom that would like to address the board on either agenda or non-agenda items? Yes,
I
sir.
would.
All right.
Hopefully, my Wi-Fi will, hold up. We have a
Sir,
farm.
can you state just your name, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. Don McKeon, we have the McEwen Centennial Farm on Ray Road. It's the most northwest parcel in the township. We also have land in Argentine and Gaines. you know, I'm not against the water coming in, and I filled out the survey and I attended the open house. But my concern is from a farming perspective, is rainwater is gonna keep coming. And you have buildings, you're gonna be putting buildings and roads and parking lots, and where is the rainwater going? So is it going to Lake Fenton, which is gonna impact, possibly impact residents along Lake Fenton, or is it gonna go to a county drain, which is gonna impact farmers? And so, you know, you just can't, you know, my comment is, you can't just talk about development without talking about what's gonna happen with rainwater / surface water. You've gotta have a plan for that. On our farm, we have about 10 acres, about 10% of our tillable acreage. We can't farm because it's too wet. And this is, you know, the county drains were put in about over 100 years ago, many of them. And, you know, they were there originally for farming, you know, to make the land farmable. And so if you just start dumping water more into the county drains, it's gonna prevent some farmers from farming. Now, I know there are farms between Thompson Road and Ray Road, and then our farm is in the very northwest part of the township. But it is gonna affect farmers in some way, so it needs to be addressed in your planning. You just can't just wish it away. It needs to be part of your planning process.
Don, just so you know, the approval process, as we're sitting here tonight, before you get site plan approval, final site plan approval for any kind of development, it has already gone through engineering, and part of that process is that the water cannot be released at any faster rate than the ag or undeveloped rate. And that's true for whether you're talking residential, commercial, whatever it is. So whatever impervious surface you're putting down, there's math that happens. The applicants demonstrate the numbers. Our township engineers review those numbers. So that water is held or detained on site and only released at the rate that would be in an undeveloped state. So it shouldn't change anything for adjoining property owners or the runoff into the drains. It's gonna be the same as if it were not developed. That's part of the infrastructure they gotta build with the development, the ability to have that retention.
Okay.
Alan,
Thank you.
Melissa, is there anything else you'd like to add to that? For
No,
Don?
I think John explained that very well. If the gentleman remembers, I also called him after the first meeting that you spoke of so that we could talk and go through some of these concerns. I never got a call back. I take it that it wasn't that big of a concern. Now, if you have concerns with the county drains, you need to be talking to the drain commissioner.
Well, I talked to the drain commissioner and Sue Hogan, the engineer, twice in the last month. So they, you know, I am talking to them on a very regular basis. So I do know.
Good.
I don't recall the phone call. I do wanna, touch base with you after the meeting. You know, I don't know why I didn't get the phone call, but, I will talk to you about it after the meeting, offline.
Well, I think it's a good idea, Alan, that you and Don get together and you can talk over any of his concerns.
Do you want my phone number?
Yeah, but let's do it offline. I'll get the phone number from you offline.
I don't know how we're gonna do that if I don't give you a phone number.
Okay, give me your phone number.
Buddy.
Okay.
7 billion people.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Don. Is there anybody else that is attending via Zoom? I don't think
Nope.
I can't see
That's it,
anybody.
yep.
All right.
One
oh,
thing. Alan, do you have a good credit card number you could give us? Go ahead.
I want Melissa's credit card, I don't want Alan's.
Hey.
All right. Anything else? Anybody else either attending or via Zoom that would like to address the board? Hearing none, it is now 8:34 PM. If there's nothing else, I say good night, and the meeting is adjourned.
Guess we're gonna have a nice time.
Hey, Mike.
Be thinking about